Hi, everybody. Thanks a million for tuning in to our latest webinar. I'm so delighted to be joined by Catriona Courtney. Catriona, thanks a million for joining.
Delighted to be here, Una, to join you.
Perfect. Thank you. So Catriona is going to be in the performance nutritionist space, which is obviously so vastly important to all of our health and well-being, and then obviously our academic and lifetime performance as well, really. So kind of, I suppose this evening, Catriona is going to give us just some suggestions and some tips as maybe what people can do at home and parents can do, and everybody in general when they're looking after themselves. So Catriona, so delighted to have you on board. Thanks a million for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm delighted to be here to talk all around nutrition, and especially in relation to kids. I'm a mum of 4. I have a son with dyslexia, and I know and I understand the challenges that we're all trying to get through when we're trying to feed our kids and get them to eat healthy food. It can be such a challenge. Like, as a business owner, and everything that's going on with 4 kids going around, they're all involved in different sports and different activities. I know the time is so limited, and I think that is probably one of the biggest challenges that I see with parents, that the kids have lots of different likes and dislikes, and we have to, I suppose, understand that they're all so unique and different. Even within our family, I know one of my kids hates one type of food and the other likes the other, and the ideas of trying to get food on the table for them all can be a challenge. But what I can kind of say is we kind of need to take the pressure off ourselves, because we're all in there together. There was actually a big survey done called the National Children's Survey there in 2019, and over 80% of parents actually wanted to make sure that their kids ate healthier, and they felt that they weren't doing a great job at it. But I mean, I think we're all doing the best that we can, and especially under the circumstances with COVID and everything that has gone on over the last year. So I think we all need to give ourselves a bit of a break as well around that. And I suppose the nutrition requirements for kids when they're going to school and the school age. You can look up, the Department of Health, and there's various different recommendations around there. But I suppose often we might look at a day and they say, oh, they didn't eat anything. We get really stressed about it. But really, they tend to, over weeks and months is what kind of makes the difference, and not to be too concerned if there's a really off day within the family and nothing is eaten that you think is actually nutritious or not. And I suppose if there's specific food groups that they're completely eliminating, then that would be probably something you might go to your GP with, and you might be referred on to a registered dietitian or a pediatric dietitian and stuff like that. But that's like if they weren't eating any, completely no dairy or no like meat, or if they were kind of not eating like say any fruit or vegetables or fruit juices or anything like that.
I know the fruit and veg, Catriona, I'm sure, as you're aware from dealing with
it is actually
constant.
Yeah, and it is actually one of the ones that I suppose people we tend to, I think, try and give our kids, as much variety in our foods as possible. But if they're not going to eat the vegetables, for example, then fruit is as much of a substitute. And I suppose to understand, the responsibility. So we provide, and the parents provide, and the children will follow and they decide. So we can always, like what I would say always with meals is that we present, a variety of foods. Often it's best to make sure that if say my Oren really likes carrots, raw carrots, that if that's the only vegetable he's going to eat, that you give them at least something that that they will eat, and then provide the rest of the food as well. And they choose, they will follow. And also it's really important to be constantly, I suppose, exposing children to different foods as well. So it might take years before they actually will eat a vegetable for you, but they will model you as well. So you kind of and if you keep presenting it as well, and in different, people talk about hiding vegetables, you can do that, but it's often just presenting it differently, or like just giving them as much exposure as possible, and just having something that they will eat, so that there won't be that stress, pressure at the end of a meal. You haven't eaten anything. At least if you know that they like pasta and cheese, and that's the only thing that they're eating for that particular week, that they will eat that at that meal. So it's kind of little things like that, takes the pressure off, and not to get too stressed about it is really
the modeling part, Catriona, is so fascinating, because I even remember myself from my own experience. I totally naturally obviously pick up on your own parents' eating habits, and you know, if they don't like a particular food, you know, a vegetable or something, chances obviously are limited that they'll A, bring it into the house, and then B, that kind of general distaste washes onto you. And I've noticed as I've gotten older, obviously my food preferences have changed, and I've been so reluctant for when I was younger trying certain foods, because I knew one or neither of my parents liked them at the time, you know. So I've kind of for a long time thought, oh, I don't like those, and actually and I discovered when I got a bit older, I actually did like some of them. So it is interesting how we mimic and model behavior in the home.
And I think it's only when they're kind of in 5th class, or that kind of social part of eating becomes a lot more obvious to them then. So, and even like during how we're eating, say even during the summer now, kind of type of occasions, like I suppose it is good to have meals at the table, or try to at least have 1 or 2 meals. Sometimes it could be 1 meal a week, depending on the week, but even trying for that if it's at a weekend or a day. Even over the summer now, the occasions of having like a picnic and a barbecue, and how we're eating in those, and how we're presenting food, all of those different things are learning for children as well. And they see the social part of the food as well, because I suppose sometimes we can take the joy out of the food if we're constantly saying, eat this, eat this, eat this, and we kind of be even more aware of the kind of environment that they're in, you know, as well. That we're out for a picnic and it's the occasion, and maybe they only ate the crisps, but they've you know, it's that kind of meal and having together as a family as well. So those are things that we try and grasp onto when we're having a rough day as well, you know.
Completely. Yeah, I suppose an interesting one, and something I know just thrown at you now, kind of, Catriona, but we get an awful lot of kids that don't actually, you know, eat breakfast, or, you know, actually then have very limited food when they're in school, particularly now the primary school lot, that obviously they'd have a kind of a small enough lunch, and they're kind of out and about playing, but they regularly come home with half their lunchbox full of food, and then there's this almost a starvation of food being thrown at them then to like get it into their system. Have you any kind of suggestions as to how that could be worked on a bit more throughout the day?
I think breakfast is just one of those important meals that we do try and I suppose when you kind of look at research, a lot of it is possibly more on teenagers as well, but cognitively it can have a big impact on grades and stuff like that over time. But so I suppose breakfast is something that if we can encourage that being one of the meals, that we may not all be sitting down, but you know, that we're providing enough of variety. Like they need to be kind of, fiber is kind of one of those nutrients that where kids can be quite low on. So you know, the very simple, like having a variety of, like, I know cereals is always like, oh, the sweet ones and all this sort of thing, but actually an awful lot of them now have had reduced salt and reduced added sugar in there, and some of them are fortified with different iron and vitamin D and all of those. So things like, you know, the Weetabix and the oatmeals and the ready bread, and even having that one substantial meal can really, I suppose, stand to them in the day as well. And I suppose when you're looking at that lunchbox, like they are away from you for like 6 or 8 hours, which can be like 60 or 70% of the time of the day. That again, giving them, I suppose, their independence and understanding, and asking them what are their likes and dislikes. And you can very simply, because I know my own kid with dyslexia, that like he loves looking at the visual side, and sometimes even if you had the food pyramid and you kind of picked out different foods from each area and kind of said, which ones do you like, and make a list, and we'll make an exercise out of it, and what do you like at the moment and what do you dislike, and give them that, and give them that kind of independence as well, can really help them as well to have empowering them, and they feel, oh, you know, I decided this. And you know, it's amazing. I mean, like with 4 kids, like they're all making their lunches now. They're each from like 7 until 14. But you know, it is giving them that kind of autonomy that they can create their own, you know, it's like, have you got a plant? Have you got color in there? Have you got, you know, make it almost like a play as well and get them to do it as well. So
Lovely.
I suppose it's all about kind of getting them to participate as well and making little exercises out of it as well. So yeah, they can be, but yeah, it is like, if we can anchor the day starting with some type of breakfast and then giving them the choices and their own lunches as well can help.
Right. Yeah, I suppose that's so
So
impactful for so many age groups, you know, and then from the parents themselves, I'm sure, to create a less
yeah,
stressful house dynamic.
yeah. Yeah, and like too, I suppose, I mean, we think of nutrition, and I work a lot with sports nutrition and all that side as well, but the physical activity part too and cognitive side of things is so important. And like, you know, whenever like there's any research done, I suppose there was one done actually in 2021 on physical activity with kids, and that they had greater cognitive flexibility when they could switch from tasks much faster with a higher amount of physical activity. So I suppose kids need to get about 60 minutes a day of activity. And in that survey that I mentioned, the Irish one, actually Irish kids tend to get about 80 minutes, which is really good. So they are getting quite a lot of it in there. But I suppose the screen time, and I think how COVID may have impacted as well. I think a lot of kids have spent a lot more time too on and that habit as well tends to be in there. And I suppose there's the treats, the habits around getting extra treats as well, I think may have come a bit stronger over COVID as well. So I suppose it's kind of just trying to get that balance that we can keep that at least a minimum of 60 minutes of activity, and that can really help them in that school day as well, which can, like we said, needs a lot of concentration and a lot of mind, and I think having some time either after school or before school as well can be good as well, just to get that extra activity in as well.
Yeah, so the exercise is, I suppose, so vital, and obviously going hand in hand then with the energy levels from the food side, because obviously if you don't have the right nutritional intake, you can't be doing much exercise really.
Yeah, and like even the, you know, the nutrients, I suppose, especially when they're growing, I mean, all like from the fruit and vegetables, like we mentioned, but also, you know, calcium is really important for their growth, for their teeth, for their development. And again, back to the exercise, the type of exercising they're doing, like hopping and skipping and chase, and all of those are great for bone, but making sure like that if they can have, say, a glass of milk with their breakfast, that, you know, they've got some cheese at lunch or something like that, and spreading kind of like, you know, those kind of calcium rich foods, like leafy green vegetables and stuff like that, and there's little bits and beans and stuff like that, that, you know, spreading them across the day as well is really important. So they're kind of important in nutrients, especially when they're growing.
From a calcium perspective, I know we've spoken about this before personally, but you know, I think there's a huge amount. I'm sure you'll be able to shed more light on it, on the food intolerance space. And there seems to be a lot of studies with the correlation between actually people that have different perspectives and different ways of learning with, you know, maybe borderline intolerances or allergies. Do you think that, you know, obviously there's other, you know, very substantial forms of intaking calcium versus the traditional, you know, kind of dairy side and the milk side of things. Would you see that the kind of trend moving in that way, to looking at different substitutes now to kind of move away from dairy and the gluten?
Yeah, well, I suppose the plant-based, I mean, definitely the plant-based sources are in there, and you know, things like you know, spreads like tahini or bean spreads can have a little bit more calcium in there. Also, you know, like if you're looking at milks and plant-based milks, you want to be making sure that they're calcium fortified milks as well. Specifically, you know, especially if they're adding to cereal, they are good ways of getting in the extra calcium. And of course, for bone health, vitamin D is really important as well. Hopefully we'll be getting lots of vitamin D over the summer, but yeah, just considering that as well. And yeah, I suppose you just have to kind of look at like a lot of the kind of when we're trying to replace I suppose dairy milk would be one of the big things you'd be looking at, a calcium fortification, making sure that they have that. And iodine is very important as well for children. So looking at I suppose label reading can be an important thing as well, you know.
Massive, yeah, that's a really interesting one from an education piece, I suppose, Catriona. They've done a huge amount on, trying to educate kids now on how to, read more labels, and we as a nation, I suppose, and consumers in general have become way more into, learning about what's in the food, and such a fabulous skill to instill at quite a young age, to be able to understand.
Yeah, and I think it's very important. Yeah, I think it's like even access to like even cookery books or making lists. Like I know my little boy, he's very visual, so he loves like the YouTube videos of like cooks and stuff like that, and actually learned how to make scrambled eggs and like little things like that. Like that was his win over COVID and stuff like that. So that type of participation can make a huge difference. Actually, that was kind of one of the tips that I was going to give, was just having them part of the process as well of creating the foods, like the simple things, like even like creating the pizza, or if you say have Taco Tuesday or Fajita Friday or something, that you just have all the foods out like a la carte, and they create their own designs. That kind of participation gives them that kind of feel for food as well. And I always kind of think, any type of like cookery club, or even taking part if granny is visiting or somebody like that, that we're all kind of cooking together and everybody has a little job as well to do. They're all kind of great things that it's the process of eating and how people are eating together, and the creation of the food as well. So they're really, I suppose, key things.
Yeah, as you're saying, the massive social side, and obviously there's been limited amount of that anyway due to COVID. But as they get older, they get more instilled in that and realize, it's such a food Irish culture, really.
Yeah, and it's just that constant exposure to food is really important when they're younger as well. Just a constant changing up, and it doesn't matter, like sometimes when you look at plates, like you say, you have to have your meat and your veg and your this, but like, the way sometimes we turn these treats or these top shelf goods that are like confectionaries and stuff into this big thing, but they can be part of snacks, or they could be part of like an apple, a cheese, and have some jellies on the plate as well. Just that it's an everyday thing. It doesn't have to be like a big special occasion and stuff like that. And understanding, then there's Safe Food actually have a very good thing going on at the moment, where their campaign talking about just how we speak about treats, and how we kind of hold off on different times. Like we may have been a lot more, I suppose, unfortunately, everybody was under a lot of anxiety and stress over lockdown and homeschooling and all that sort of thing, and that often treats would have been the easy way out and stuff like that, but I suppose making them, I suppose, less available, but less of a big deal as well. I think often if we call them good or bad, or calling foods like that, can really, I suppose, give that restrictive mindset then that they can't have them and they really want them then, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So
and the less as well, Catriona, I'm sure, less them being around. I've kind of had experiences, obviously, of lots of the kids that we work with, and in their houses, sometimes some houses have loads and other times there's very limited, and obviously if it's not there, the child is not exactly going out to the shop and getting it themselves, so there's less, I suppose, opportunities then.
Yeah, but I suppose again, it's the kind of the classification, if we call it good or bad. Like I always say, there's no bad food. All foods are good for us. It's just how we fit them in and how we blend them into our daily diet and stuff like that. So that's kind of really important.
Yeah, that's so valuable, I suppose, for us, Catriona, as adults as well, even how we pinpoint food and how we can, I suppose, help the younger generation kind of link in with that. Any last key take homes, Catriona, for any of our kind of viewers tuning in as a summary of what they, if they could do one thing now from today, what could you kind of suggest would be their main action point?
I think a key thing is to ask your kids again, what are their likes and dislikes at the moment, you know, because I'm always surprised when I ask that question, because they can change. And I said,
Yeah.
oh, do you really like that? And you know, like it was spinach leaves, and I asked my girl Quiva, what do you like? I thought you didn't like them. And she said, oh no, I like spinach. Yeah, I do like spinach. So it's like those simple things of kind of just even getting that list of likes and dislikes, and seeing you know, whether it will surprise, and then give them suggestions. And you still have to provide. So I suppose the responsibility will always be that we have to provide the healthy foods or the variety of foods that are in there. It's up to them to decide whether they're going to eat it on that specific day, and give them that independence to do that as well. But we will continuously try and provide that right thing, and understand where they're coming from as well. So that kind of like and dislike list is always a good one to kind of keep checking in with them. You might be surprised what they're actually liking at this particular time. So yeah,
Great.
it's kind of a
Fabulous.
like
Yeah, I suppose there's loads for them, everybody to, you know, unpack, and those all the key things I should have said at the start. Make sure you have pen and paper so you can take down all your little points and little notes. But Catriona, thanks a million for joining us and sharing
no
all
bother
your
at all.
vast,
Really
vast insights
Yeah.
on the nutritional space. And listen, feel free, any of our people watching, if they have any questions, how best should they contact you, Catriona, if they wanted to learn more, to follow up with nutrition?
Well, yeah, my company is Elevate Nutrition, and you can just Google it, elev8nutrition.ie, and you'll see contact information there, and I can be contacted. I'm also on Instagram at Elevate Nutrition IRL, so that's my Instagram handle.
Perfect. Great. Thanks a million, Catriona.
Brilliant.
You're very good. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you. Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.